ought to be in pictures. You're wonderful to see. You ought to be in pictures. Oh, what a hit you would be.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the very first podcast episode of the Cinema Diaries. My name is Cassidy, and in this podcast, I will be covering a variety of film and media-related subjects. Today, however, I am going to focus primarily on podcasts themselves, since this is my very first time actually making one. And to do that, I have invited one of my friends, Joey Gentile, who runs the popular podcast Academy Queens. You can find this podcast on Apple, Spotify, wherever you stream your podcasts from. Joey is located in Ohio, and along with his friend Brandon, they run this podcast, and it is all about reviewing the actresses who have been nominated for Academy Awards. This is actually a podcast that I listen to myself quite frequently. I thoroughly enjoy it, and me and Joey have become really good friends through social media. We keep in contact a lot. So a little bit of backstory. I started listening to podcasts maybe in the last 5 years or so. When I was in high school, I really didn't delve into the podcast realm because at that time it wasn't that prevalent, and you really didn't see a lot of kids around me like listening to them, and I was very influenced by like the people around my friend group or whatever. So I really never experienced any of that. I kind of just listened to music. But as I got into college and was, becoming more interested in things that piqued my interest and things that, I wanted to educate myself on, I started listening to them, at night, especially when I was trying to go to sleep. The thing about podcasts is I really see them becoming prevalent in the next 10 years. I just think that they're very informative, and obviously, there's something out there for everybody. That goes for like any situation, but in podcasts especially, I originally didn't think that I would ever be interested in them because they all seemed kind of, at the time, the ones that I had seen, they were all, like sports related, and I'm not really a sports type person. However, I do feel that I am beginning to get more of a grasp on the world of podcasts, and I especially feel that way since I now know and am in contact with somebody who actually produces one weekly. So that is why I am so excited to bring on Joey in just a couple of minutes. Something that we really don't think about, like pre-social media speaking, is common interests and mutual interests between different people. This is actually how I met Joey. I met him through Twitter, and we were kind of on the subject of, actresses and talking about different films. I'm very into like the Academy Award nominated film genre, and that ironically is what Joey's podcast is all about. So Joey messages me one day, and he's like, hey, I'm having this actress on. I know that you're a huge fan of hers because that's originally how we met. We started talking about this particular actress. And he said, I actually got the connections, and I'm going to have her on the show with me and Brandon. So I was like ecstatic. I was so in shock. At first I was like, is this dude like pulling my leg because he knows that I'm such a huge fan of this, Oscar-nominated actress? And he was like, yeah, if you want to ask her a question, just message me like the question that you want her to answer, and we're gonna like feature it on the show. Finally, it took me about a day, maybe 2 days at the most, to like muster up one single question to ask this actress who I really, really admire. And long story short, I got a shout out on Academy Queens, and I got a burning question that I've always wanted to know answered by somebody who is actually practicing, filmmaking and in that industry. For somebody like me, a student who is studying media, it's fascinating to hear it through somebody who is actually practicing it professionally, which goes back to why I think that podcasts are an excellent learning tool. I think that they should be implemented way more often. After listening to that particular episode, I was just floored at Brandon and Joey's chemistry on that show. It was so intriguing to, hear this banter back and forth. And in addition to, talking to somebody who's got a very, very excellent reputation in the movie industry, they also were just having so much fun. And it makes you want to inquire more about this profession, I guess you could call it, because, it's something that they do on the side. So to talk a little bit more about his podcast and the world of this particular industry, I am now going to turn my microphone over to Joey Gentile of Academy Queens. So, Joey, just tell us a little bit about Academy Queens and its premise. What is it about? Who would it intrigue? Who is this directed towards?
Academy Queens is super simple to understand. It's what would happen if I had an Oscar ballot, but not just an Oscar ballot. What if the Academy Awards were actually literally run by me? I was the only one who gave out the votes. Where would I put my vote and who would get the statuette? Super simple premise.
I think it's really interesting to kind of have that personal aspect to it where it's almost kind of like a film review type podcast. That's kind of the vibes that I get from it. Now, how exactly did this idea come about? What sparked your interest in this entire realm?
It's been a fun ride. I started it with someone I met on Twitter. His name is Brandon Stanwyck. We just happened to agree with someone on someone else's thread from miles away. And by miles, I'm talking like states away. And then it turned out that it was a rare instance where I agreed on who should have won something, and as did he. And I looked at his page, and it happened that he was from Cleveland. So I messaged him and said, "Hey, I'm a stranger. Do you want to meet at a coffee shop? I have an idea." And he's like, "Sure." And then we met in November, and we were in an actual recording studio by January. So it was very much fate that brought us together. The idea of the podcast came just because I wanted to talk. Sure, you can always write out in a blog, but I feel like you have so much better ways to express yourself when you talk. And plus, too, when you write things, people may take text as certain tones or meanings. And I just was like, maybe 5 people would listen to it, and we ended up being really successful within our first year. We were featured as one of iTunes' top film history podcasts. And, it's been crazy. We just finished our 6th season. We're on 6 out of 7 continents. And, it's been a blast.
For those of you guys listening who have no idea what this podcast is even about, I highly recommend that you check it out. Like I said at the start of this recording, it's available, I know for a fact, on Apple and on Spotify, and I'm pretty sure you can find it on any other streaming platforms. Therefore, I'm not even surprised that it has landed the amount of success that it has. Something that I'm pretty sure a lot of people, including myself, are curious about is what exactly are the pros and the cons of this particular form of media?
The pros of running a podcast and the cons of running a podcast are always long and egregious. The pros, you get to connect with people all over the world, and really get your voice out there. And for Academy Queens, one of the things we've been able to connect with are like Oscar nominated actors. Like we've had Meg Tilly on the show, and Penelope Milford and Leslie Ann Warren, and we've had contact from the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences, and we know people at the Academy listen to us, so that's been great. The cons, though, is that it can be very tedious and time-consuming. We went through 6 seasons, and these seasons are about 11 episodes a season within 2 years. So we really just went back to back to back with them. So we're actually on a hiatus right now because we need a break But yeah, it just can be very time consuming, and that can, for us, we didn't want to get to a point where it felt like it was a chore, and by the time we got to our sixth season, it kind of felt like it, to be all honest. So that's why we needed a hiatus and take a little break, and just regather ourselves. We want it to feel fresh again.
And that's always a good thing, because you never want to get burnt out in a situation like that, especially like when you're being creative and it's an outlet for something. Like, I know for me personally, in my free time, I love to do video edits and photo edits like on my phone. I just find that it's so stress relieving and it brings me joy. But to feel like, if it was something that I had to do it to, force myself, I don't think it would be the same. I actually learned something new from what you just told me. I had no idea that there were so many pros and cons within this industry. It's very funny, because in my mind, it seems like the pros would outweigh the cons. But according to you, there are actually, you have to put it aside for a while and try not to get overwhelmed with it. Like, that's just so funny to me, because that's the issue with a lot of things in the creative field, any creative field for that matter. Now, I highlighted this earlier in the recording. Do you believe that podcasts are going to play a bigger role within the next 10 years or so?
It depends, because podcasts playing a bigger role in the digital media industry, I think we're at that point yet, or I'm sorry, we're already at that point, because you look at every Tom, Dick, and Harry, they have a podcast. It's just, do you have a premise that hasn't been done yet, or do you have a premise that people be interested in? We weirdly found out that there were no podcasts out there that were ranking actresses' performances who had been nominated for the Oscar. We happened to hit a niche market that had many film and Oscar podcasts, but none in this realm. So it's I hate to be that person, but a percent of it is luck and timing, and then the rest of it is just, a good show, to be honest with you. Regarding digital media, like I said, people always say like the golden age of television. I think we're in that golden age of podcasting right now. So
that is definitely something that I overlooked when doing my research for this. I totally agree with that statement, that you have to have a premise that people are interested in. Like, you give the people what they want, and, in this case, it was up your alley. It wasn't like you were being made to talk about this specific thing. This is totally you and Brandon. This is what you guys live, eat, breathe, sleep, whatever. My last question for you is, what advice would you give to future individuals who are seeking a career in this specific field? I know that you said that digital media, the industry or whatever, we're already there, but what do you have to say to people who are currently in that situation where it's like, okay, this is what I want to do. I want to start up my own podcast, and this is how I want to, successfully make a living?
Advice for individuals seeking a career in this particular field. I can tell you something. Unless you are signed with an agency or a direct corporation, you don't make any money in this. We didn't start making money in this really until our 5th season with Patreon, but we made some money this year on our 6th season because a sponsorship came to us. And by money on this, we were able to pay a light bill with it. It's not like we're, quitting our day job. So, you can make money, but it's not, again, unless you're with an agency or a steady sponsor. But in order to get those steady sponsors, you have to get the listens. In order to get the listen, you have to find, you have to get popular enough. The biggest advice I can give to anyone for this is just have fun with it, because you're not going to be making a career out of this right off the bat or for a long time. So just have fun and know that You may think that you're the only one who cares about a certain subject, but I can guarantee you, no matter what it is, you'll find an audience. So just keep trucking.
Can I just stress to you guys how much I love how he ended that answer? That was just pure gold. I love the way that he painted that picture. It may seem like a harsh reality, but for those of you seeking to make a full-time career out of this, like he said, just keep trucking. And, the funny thing is that that's how me and Joey came into contact. We both had a similar interest, and the rest is history. I found a podcast that I really listen to, on a regular basis and enjoy, and I made a friend. So that's definitely something that I have gotten out of podcasting as a listener. I just want to thank each and every one of you who tuned in to this entire 15 minutes. I feel like it's gone on forever, but I really, really love the way that this first episode played out. Not only did I learn a lot about how podcasting works, but I also feel like there's some of you out there listening who will take this advice at hand, and put it into play in your own life. I want to give a huge thank you to Joey for dedicating some of his precious time to answer these questions. I've learned a lot myself, as, like I said, probably most of you have listening. Hopefully the next episode of these that I make is going to have a lot less filler words because, as you can tell, I am not accustomed to talking into a microphone. I hope you guys have an amazing day or night wherever you are, and I'll talk to you guys next time.
You ought to be in pictures. You're wonderful to see. You ought to be in pictures. Oh, what a hit you would be.